Today is June 29, 2022. My name is Rob Carr of Kalamazoo Right to Life, and this is Pro-Life Week. Well, I've noticed that the liberals and the pro-abortion people are unrelenting in their criticism of the Dobbs decision overturning Roe v. Wade, and it just has not let up. You know, they've called Dobbs despicable, cruel, the actions of a rogue court. They've called it illegitimate. They've said women will die because of Dobbs. It's stripping away women's fundamental rights to their bodily autonomy. And that seems to be the new term of choice these days. You know, I've noticed too how the pro-abortion people do use these catchphrases to justify their organization. The right of privacy, pro-choice, birthing people. I like that. And that's a new one too. Birthing people. You know, the Democrats have gotten so twisted like a pretzel that they're unwilling or unable to really define the term, what is a woman? So it's a lot safer to say birthing people. So bodily autonomy is the new flavor of the year, I'd say. But they never acknowledge that the baby in the womb should have his or her bodily autonomy protected as well. But you never hear about that, never. So I got to thinking too, another question, or the crux to the issue is, what is an abortion? Well, just the basic term, what is an abortion? Well, I know the pro-abortion people would say that it's a simple medical procedure. It's healthcare. It's like having your appendix removed. You know, it's just a simple procedure. So what really is an abortion? Another term they'll use is it's terminating a pregnancy. Okay, so what does the word terminate mean? Well, maybe some of you have seen the movie The Terminator from decades ago. There's been a lot of killing and violence in that movie, I'm sure. Terminate means to kill. You know, it does not mean to remove, as in you're removing the fetus from the uterus. That's not what it means. Terminate means to kill it. So what is an abortion? Well, this is how I would define abortion. The willful, purposeful killing of an unborn human being, whether by sucking the baby out using a high-powered vacuum, ripping the baby apart in the process, forgive me if I mean kind of graphic, or by using sharp instruments and slicing the baby into smaller parts, in effect dismembering the baby, and removing those parts one by one. Sounds very sanitized, doesn't it? No, I think not. It's barbaric. It is uncivilized. We do not do that to dogs or cats, but we do it to human babies, all in the name of reproductive choice. So I've been noticing too that the liberal commentators, some of the pro-abortion people, are criticizing Justice Alito, who wrote the Dobbs opinion, for his use of going back in time, you know, to justify this overturning Roe v. Wade. You know, it goes back to the 19th century. In 1870s, we had states that had Jim Crow laws, along with laws banning abortion. You know, we had the KKK on the loose. Women couldn't vote until 1920 when the 19th Amendment was ratified. And Native Americans were losing their lands to white settlers. You know, all these things were happening. But then, all of a sudden, America became enlightened and progressive. And in 1954, Brown versus Board of Education overturned Plessy versus Ferguson, and Jim Crow laws were outlawed. Separate but equal was banned. And things were changing. In 1965, with Griswold versus Connecticut, the court established a right of privacy for married couples in which they could purchase and use birth control devices. 1971, in Eisenstadt versus Baird, that right was extended to unmarried persons to use birth control. And then in 1973, of course, was Roe v. Wade. They got the full package: abortion on demand, the first 6 months of pregnancy, or until fetal viability. So the arc of history was always moving in a progressive direction. Progressive as in the word progress. So the liberals are blaming Alito for falling back into the past to resurrect this anti-abortion right. Gee, I wish the other side would do its homework. I really do. They just don't do their homework. So I went back to the Roe opinion of 1973. You know, they're blaming Alito for dredging up history. So I went back to Roe, and I saw what Justice Harry Blackmun, the author of the Roe opinion, what he had to say about history. Quote in page 129. Now remember, the opinion begins on page 113, so it's not like we're 129 pages into the opinion. But on page 129, he writes, quote, "It perhaps is not generally appreciated that the restrictive criminal abortion laws in effect in a majority of states today are of relatively recent vintage. They are not of ancient or even common law origin. Instead, they derive from statutory changes in the latter half of the 19th century," unquote. So he's upset that these laws are of recent vintage. So to justify abortion, Blackmun's got to go into the past. Page 130, he writes, quote, "We are also told that abortion was practiced in Greek times as well as in the Roman Empire," unquote. So to justify abortion, he goes back to 400 BC. Quote, "Greek and Roman law afforded little protection to the unborn," unquote. And as one pro-lifer told a congressional committee in 1974 during a discussion of the Human Life Amendment, quote, "We should not be surprised that Rome, that invented crucifixion, would find little regard for the lives of the unborn," unquote. On page 130, Blackmun criticizes the Hippocratic Oath as not representing the prevailing attitude of Greek physicians. And no, the Hippocratic Oath includes these portions, quote, "I will not give to a woman a pessary to produce abortion. I will not give to a woman an abortive remedy," unquote. On page 132 to 136, Blackmun talks about English common law of 7 centuries ago, claiming that abortion was legal before and after fetal quickening. He finally gets to American laws of the 1830s to the 1850s that begins to restrict abortion. He sums up his history section on page 130, quote, "It is thus apparent that at common law, at the time of the adoption of our Constitution and throughout the major portions of the 19th century, abortion was viewed with less disfavor than under most American statutes currently in effect." Let me get my page here. Parson it another way. I'm still quoting here. Parson it another way. "Women enjoyed a substantially broader right to terminate a pregnancy than she does in most states today," unquote. In pages 141 to 142, he talks about the AMA's Physicians' Crusade Against Abortion, but downplays why they had become so pro-life. The reason? The scientific discoveries of the 19th century proved the existence of the baby in the womb as a living human being from the moment of conception. Here's my conclusion. Both Blackmun and Alito appealed to history. Blackmun went back to the Greeks and Romans, to pagan societies, to justify legal abortion. Alito uses history to show that Blackman's version of abortion history was flawed and incorrect. With that, the court had to fix what was incorrect, and that led them to a different conclusion. Roe must be overturned because it was wrong, or as Alito would say, egregiously wrong from the day it was decided. I want to close on a personal note. I'm thinking about our founders of Kalamazoo Right to Life, Dr. Joe Kincaid and Dorothy Tolanda, who passed away a few years ago. You know, and I'm thinking and I'm hoping and I'm imagining them looking down from heaven and celebrating and rejoicing in what they're saying with Roe v. Wade being overturned. I mean, they spent they spent most of their adult lives fighting Roe v. Wade and fighting for the legal protections for the unborn child against the cruel and impersonal attack of the instruments of the abortionists. You know, they were visionaries in forming Kalamazoo Right to Life. Back in November of 1969, Joe started our organization, and Dorothy joined it shortly thereafter. And, you know, they would, especially in 1972, there was a referendum on legalizing abortion that was defeated. But they would go countless times to churches, schools, civic groups. They debated people. If there was a group that needed information or wanted information, Joe and Dorothy and several others would travel to preach the pro-life message. And I mean, they really were on the cusp of great exploits for the pro-life movement. They were there in the very beginning, almost years before Roe v. Wade was even decided. Joe and Dorothy were leading Kalamazoo Right to Life, and to commemorate our 50th anniversary from 1969 to 2019, we put together a historical booklet to commemorate that 50-year period. And it's filled with articles and photographs and recollections and memories of people, and it's just a nice booklet. And it is for sale. If you are interested in purchasing a copy, it is $15. It's a fundraiser of sorts, so please understand that going into it. It is a fundraiser, but it's a $15 booklet. If you want to get a copy of it, send us an email to our email address at info, so INFO, at KAZOORTL.org, and request your copy. You can go on to our website. Just type in Kalamazoo Right to Life, and you'll go to our website, and you can pay for it through PayPal, or send us a check to our address at P.O. Box 2366, Kalamazoo, Michigan 49003. And we will get you your copy of our Pictorial History and Recollections historical booklet. With that, I guess I will let you go, but I want to remind you once again, don't sign that petition. If you come across a petition circulator, pro-abortion circulator, don't sign that petition. With that, I will let you go. I will see you next time.